I'm Bobby Wrinkle. I want to welcome you to Evening Upstairs at your library. Tonight's program will discuss some of the extreme weather events that have impacted our region over the last few years. Our presenter will share from his vast knowledge and experience on winter storm forecasting. Let me tell you a little bit about tonight's presenter. He's a graduate of Mississippi State University and began studying weather when he was 8 years old. He has been recognized on the floor of the House of Representatives in Kentucky as recipient of the 2009 Kentucky Office of Highway Safety Awards for Excellence. He's one of 200 people in the United States to have been awarded the Mark Trail Award in Washington, D.C. He's also the recipient of 6 Who Made a Difference Award and the recipient of the noted Caesar Biama Volunteer Service Award. And he's a talented photographer. Let's welcome Chief Meteorologist of Weather Talk and our guest, Beau Dodson.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll try to talk loud, see how the speakers do as well. If you can't hear me, raise your hand at some point and say you can't hear. I think that's loud. So good evening. Thank you for coming out. I've got spent the last week I wasn't sure I was going to do my presentation. I knew it was going to be winter storms, but it's sort of the last week evolved, it came together. So the gist of tonight is really about winter weather, but we'll cover some other stuff as well. If you don't know how to find me, just Google Beau Dodson and you'll find me on Facebook, Twitter, and everywhere else. I do have we'll do a commercial first. I do have the new texting system sponsored by the Firehorn, and some of the Firehorn representatives are here tonight. If you haven't heard about it, just go to weathertalk.com or send me an email. Again, I teamed up with the Firehorn. They're out of McCracken County here. And mostly it's fire, police, ambulance, plus one weatherman is what they do. So they do a great job. A lot of people over the years said they always wanted to know when I updated Facebook or the blog or the videos. It took a little effort, but from brainstorming with Preston and some others, we decided, why not text it? So now you can get a text that says, hey, I just updated Facebook. Here's the new thread. It comes in real handy during severe weather and winter storms. Also, proceeds from Weather Talk helps with some of our local charities. We give teddy bears every year to Child Watch and PSAC in Western Kentucky. We've had a lot of other programs too. Cal Sisto, we started with weather radios, giving away after the May tornado in 2003 in Massac County. We give away one weather radio every day at Channel 6, and that program's kind of grown as well. I don't know how many weather radios we've given out over the years, but quite a few. And we do some other charity work as well in the local area. This is basically the area that I cover, although it goes a little bit out to Poplar Bluff, Todd County, Kentucky, but the main area that I cover is right there, and that's where most people that follow me live. If you don't have a weather radio, I always tell people, get a weather radio. You need about 3 sources of information for severe weather warnings. If one of them fails, you have another one. That includes the outdoor siren system, which is really meant for people outdoors. If you live next to one, of course, you're going to hear it. But remember, somebody has to turn the siren on. If the Weather Service doesn't issue a tornado warning, the siren may not go off. It depends on the situation. So don't depend on just the siren. Weather radio is your quickest way. The text messaging service I have is a quick way. Of course, most people have apps now on their phone. If you want to win a weather radio, you can also see the contest we've got going on right now. We're going to give away a bunch of weather radios on Christmas Day. Sign up for that. Just go on Facebook or the blog and look for it. So I am from Massac County. I live in Massac County. Built a house on my family farm. I'd been in the family for a long time, about 1880 or so. We moved off the farm in 1988. There have been several other people that lived there. But in 2008, bought it back, built a house, kind of weather observatory, got its name, and the website came after that. And had my weather set up there, and then we had a bad lightning storm last year, and it took out a lot of equipment, and that wasn't very good. So I have been interested in weather since I was 8 years old. This is Channel 6 way back when, well before the internet even. This is Sam Burge. Came up during a winter storm in 1985 for Burge's Bag, I think it was called. Some of you probably remember that. So my interest in weather goes way, way, way back. I brought a weather radio to school when I was a little kid, probably the only one ever at Jefferson Elementary to bring a weather radio to school. And the teachers, they loved it. So this is 1978. People ask me, how did you become interested in weather? The blizzards of the 1970s probably is what piqued my interest, because we had multiple big snowstorms in 77, 78, 79. Some of you remember that. We were out of school for weeks at a time. Some of the best winters, if you like snow, that I can remember. This was my grandmother's house up there. This was a neighbor that brought a tractor up, and it was a lot of snow, as you can see. So, of course, I would be interested in weather. Back then, we only had 3 TV stations. We did not have a satellite dish. We just had 3, 6, and 12. Eventually, PBS showed up. I always say, I think, I don't know it for sure, but I feel like Little House on the Prairie, maybe. To be honest, though, my grandmother made most of our outfits, and she passed away in 2005. Wonderful woman. My mom's here tonight. I'm sure she helped her make some of the clothes as well. I don't think growing up I knew that my grandmother made the clothes, but she's a wonderful woman, so I'd mention her. Growing up, I watched Cal Sisto, Don McNeely. Some of you remember these being on the weather locally, Channel 6 and Channel 12. Probably Don McNeely and Cal were one of the bigger influences on me. Weather, I would sneak out. My mom would ground me from the weather, so when I got in trouble, she'd ground me from the weather, and I would sneak out with a weather radio or with a transistor radio. And back then, you could listen to Channel 6 on 88.9. And so I would sneak out behind the bush and listen to Cal on the radio. And eventually I got to intern under Cal before he left. And he was always really kind to me. And he was a snow fanatic as well. So we shared that interest. Some of you might remember AM weather. I used to wake up at 6 a.m., 5:45 a.m., and watch this 15-minute show. And it was the best thing on TV for me, at least. Any kid that gets up that early in the morning just to watch the weather. Pretty fanatical about weather. So it was a great show. My mom, this is the farm that we built this snowman on here in 2010. There's my mom with a snowman in 1951. So some similarities with my nephew Tyler. So a little trivia, maybe you're at an office party at Christmas this year. Somebody wants to know Beau Dodson family history. It might surprise you to know that my great uncle was a meteorologist, Sergeant Robert A. Dodson. He was the only meteorologist that was in the Army at the time for D-Day. He parachuted into France, set up weather equipment. He injured his knee at the time. He was had to get special permission from the Air Force because he had never jumped out of an airplane before. So his one and only time that he jumped out of an airplane was for this, to forecast for the D-Day, for Normandy and D-Day. So they named a award after him, and it's given out every year. It's called the Dodson Award, and it is given out to Air Force, the excellence Air Force meteorology. Usually, I've read some of the stories of the people that have received the award. Usually they're involved heavily in the community and some other stuff, but one person a year receives that award. So I feel like weather may be somewhere in my blood, but that's an interesting story. So my philosophy in weather is communicate and to make weather personal. Of course, social media makes that easy. Before social media, it wasn't so easy. What I started in 2003 was an email list of about 10 people. And that's how all of this started. I had no idea or ever dreamed or planned for it to become what it has become, because that small family email list grew and grew and grew into the thousands. Then social media came along, Facebook, the rest is history. So it's grown and grown and grown, and I've learned, along with all of you, better ways to communicate what's going on in the atmosphere. So the media, a lot of times, everything's extreme, especially these days. Everything is extreme. This cold blast that we're going right now, if you watch some of the headlines over the last week, it was like the worst cold. But then if you read the story, it said the most intense cold since last winter. And I read that, I'm like, the headline does not match with the story. So you kind of have to filter everything out these days. So in our area, at least, extreme weather is basically weather. extremes are made of norms. It's might surprise you to know that it's not normal in July to have necessarily the normal high temperature. That normal high temperature comes from 100 degree one year, 70 degree one year. This is all averaged out. So these extremes that we hear about all the time, it's just weather. So this year, spring was quiet. We had a few severe weather episodes, but not a lot. Then one day, on a day that really was not supposed to have severe weather, I think there was a slight risk. There were some morning storms that went through northwest Kentucky with some big hail. And I was sitting there watching all that, and I sent out my last text to Owensboro. And there was this little shower in Graves County. Well, I just finished talking with Nick from WSIL, and we were talking about the parameters for severe weather in western Kentucky. There was a lot of spin in the atmosphere. But when you looked at the actual Storm Prediction Center information, it really didn't seem like much would happen. That little shower within maybe 30 minutes started to turn. I mean, you could clearly see it on radar. It was turning. So everyone's attention was like, is this thing going to actually do something? And it did. Of course, it dropped a tornado. Very fortunate that day because multiple schools could have been hit. I mean, it's bad that a tornado goes anywhere, but a few miles difference and that story would have been a lot worse. And so it was not a good day. If you had signed up for text messages, I'll show you what you get. And on that particular day, there were some text messages before this that were telling people to, let's keep an eye on this cell in western Kentucky in Graves County. And it all happened rapidly, like minutes before a tornado was reported. The text went out. I think the sirens went off. A lot of people said the sirens went off after the tornado went through, but it took a while to get the warning out, I guess. It just happened fast. But people who were using the text messages said that they really appreciated it because it was their only information they were getting was initially the text messages. And one reason for that is it's the way we have it set up with Preston and Firehorn is I can type out a message really fast, and it takes a little more time to issue a warning. So maybe a minute or two faster, I can type it out on a text. Not always, but a lot of times, especially if I know what's going on. Another storm this summer, July 6th, was a squall line. Now, we do not normally have tornadoes in July in our local area. This storm come across McCracken County and Pulaski County, and it wasn't long until it was reported that a mobile home had flipped in Ballard County. Again, normally when these things happen, everything happens really fast because remember, the storm's moving at 30, 40 miles per hour. Not down an interstate that curves, but in the atmosphere. So when you have something going 30 or 40 miles an hour in the atmosphere, it's a straight line. I mean, it moves fast. So 5 minutes is a long time for a tornado. It can literally start and be over. A lot of hectic reports came in all at once, but we were able to send out a text message that day that it started out with that. Wasn't necessarily a confirmation, but look, there's maybe a tornado in Ballard County, Ballard, McCracken, Massac, seek shelter. And within minutes, the tornado hit Ballard, McCracken, and crossed into Massac, crossed the river. About 70 to 100 mile an hour winds. Again, happened fast. And I got several messages that day. One of them was this lady who had children, and that warning was the only warning she had. She said she knew a storm was coming, but that she didn't realize how bad. And when she saw that I said a tornado was coming, they immediately took shelter and they had damage. So, all right, so Ohio Valley winter storms. Sorry. We do not live in the snow belt. That's Boulder, Colorado, by the way. I flew out there to photograph that storm before it happened, and we got lucky. Like it looks like shaving cream. We don't necessarily live in a snow belt. Matter of fact, Paducah's average snowfall is around 9 inches. And that 9 inches is made up of some years getting 1 inch and some years getting 20 inches. Now, with that said, the last few years, over the last 10 years, there's been some spectacular winter storms in western Kentucky with some big drifts and similar to the late 1970s. So we've been, if you like snow, it's been fortunate for West Kentucky. But if you live in southeast Missouri and Illinois, some of those areas have not had hardly any snow in the same years where western Kentucky had a lot of snow. So either love or hate snow. And if you're on my social media feeds, I always have to be careful because I am a snow fanatic. I love snow. So I have to, be careful because not everybody likes snow. And you'll see that because as soon as somebody says, I hope it snows, someone else will say, I'm 70 years old, I can't get out in the snow. So there's this balance, and I get that. But I still love snow. So there's team snow and there's team warm, and it seems to battle back and forth all winter long. So I don't tornado chase. I do like to do photography, and so I snow chase. And I don't have any desire to storm chase. I've seen the aftermath of EF5 and F5 tornadoes, and there's nothing about any of that I want to be around. I hate forecasting it. I hate watching it on radar. Nothing about that interests me, but snow I really like. So, like I said, a little snow fanatic. You can see my equipment, like prepping for winter or a big trip. This is what goes into it. A lot of warm gear, a lot of photography equipment. Sometimes I go with my friend, Jason Darnell. He goes, and so we go and photograph winter storms. And for me, I think that nature can be quite beautiful, even when it is destructive. And I heard this a lot during the ice storm. People would go, it's so beautiful, but not so beautiful. So there's, nature does what nature does, and we get in nature's way. So whatever happens, we just have to deal with it. For me, if it's going to snow, it's pretty. So I do my photography. I do some photography art as well. Maybe if I ever slow down one day, I'll do a little more of it. But these are some photographs from a winter storm a couple years ago in central Illinois. And to me, that's just awesome, I love it. Especially a winter storm where the snow is wet and just sticks to everything. And that's Boston, Massachusetts. That's Boulder, the big winter storm I told you about a while ago. And that's in Waterloo, Ontario. That's in Massac County, a couple of miles, maybe 2 miles from where I live there to the north. And I tried a couple years ago to photograph snowflakes. I was kind of getting pretty good at it, but the problem with photographing snowflakes is there has to be snowflakes. And it doesn't always snow here, so unless you live up north, you don't get a lot of practice. So you really have to take advantage of it. And not all snowflakes look like snowflakes. A lot of them are prisms, or they just don't look like that, what you see on TV or think of in your head. They don't look like that. So you have to wait till it's certain temperature, dryness in the air to get a snowflake to semi-look like that. So again, a lot of people like snow. Some people don't. Already, over the last few weeks, people are begging, when's it going to snow? I need snow. I'm wanting a white Christmas. I only want a white Christmas. Please do not let it snow any other time. So I'm like, okay. This one lady's birthday is coming up, and she's been asking me for snow on her birthday, and we may get a wintry mix on Sunday before it warms up above 40 and changes to rain. We'll see. So let's talk about why it's so hard to forecast snow. And for a meteorologist, it's so difficult to inform people and educate them on this subject. There's a lot that goes into a winter storm forecast, and this is why winter storm forecasts are notoriously known for not working out the way we all think they will. It's either too much, too little. It's hard to get it right. So these are some variables that go into it. Ground and surface temperature, time of year. Did it rain before it snowed? What's the wind speed? Is there blowing snow? Is the temperature low enough so there'll be blowing snow? Or will the temperature be such that it's a wet snow and it doesn't blow? So that people who clear the roads, they clear it once, it doesn't blow back on there. Time of the event. Is it morning rush hour? If it's morning rush hour, we're going to have a lot of problems. If it happens on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday weekend, you don't have as many problems. One of our deadlier winter storm events a couple years ago, nobody will remember it because of the big ice storm, 2009, but in that December before the big ice storm, there was one morning, it was really cold, and there was like a trace. It wasn't even 0.05. It was a trace of freezing rain. A lot of people died that day in our region because it was this thin layer of ice that simply looked like the sidewalk was wet, but it was ice. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of accidents that morning. And it really kind of, it was a discussion in the meteorology community. How do we better communicate that, what's worse, that or 12 inches of snow? Really, it's the freezing rain that's worse. But in people's minds, it's the 12 inches of snow. So somehow we have to communicate these things. But those are some things that go for a meteorologist into winter storm forecasting. So let's say in July that I put out this forecast one night, that a few clouds, it'll be dry overnight with mild temperatures. Let's say that during the night, it rains 1/10 of an inch. Of course, that would never happen to me because I wouldn't get it wrong, of course. So that's fiction, but just kidding. It rains 1/10 of an inch at 2 a.m. in the morning. You're sound asleep. Do you care? Okay. This is what you wake up to in the morning. Maybe the driveway is a little wet. Maybe if you own a nice car, you get some spots on it. But do you care? Most people don't. They don't care. Did you know that an inch of snow is that? So typically in this area, 1/10 of an inch of rain, melted snow, is 1 inch of snow, if that makes sense. In a dry climate, or where it's really cold, let's say it's 10 degrees, that 0.10 could actually be 3 or 4 inches of snow. That's what we have to deal with as meteorologists. So in the summertime, you don't care if it rains 1/10 of an inch. But that same 1/10 of an inch in the wintertime, you're going to be cussing the weatherman in the morning because you're shoveling snow. And it's not an error in forecasting that a meteorologist can hide because you look outside your window and there's snow everywhere. So nature's way of saying, oops. So that's complicated too. You melt down snow this winter. When it snows, you melt it down, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, another problem is that the road temperature can be 40 degrees, but if the air temperature is low and you get bridges and overpasses or a little freezing drizzle, you have a solid sheet of ice on your bridge, but your roads are fine. This is another thing that we have to forecast. So not only do we have to figure out maybe the roads will be fine, but the bridges won't. So does the Weather Service issue a winter weather advisory because bridges might be slick? Probably not. It probably is a special weather statement. So these are kind of the problems that we have to deal with. The media, of course, focuses on tornadoes, hurricanes. How many times have we seen a weatherman on the beach getting ready to be blown away? And we're all thinking, why are they out there? But when it comes to icy roads, maybe it makes a news story. Top story is the winter storm. The top story is probably not going to be this. So just for example, in the 2008 and 9, Oklahoma, 7 fatalities from tornadoes. That would be big news, breaking news. It would be all over CNN. But if 15 people died from the ice, snow, it doesn't really make the news, okay? That probably not going to make the news, but that does. So there's some, difference here on how the media or how we communicate risk. In reality, winter storms kill more people than hurricanes and tornadoes, okay? But most people don't know that because it either happens one at a time or the news just doesn't cover that. It's just not, it's what I call, it's not sexy or whatever. It doesn't get people to turn on their TV to see this or that. It's not spectacular. Okay, so when it comes to winter storms in our area, most of you know what a low pressure center is, cold front, warm front. If you like snow, you want to be on the north side of the low, or you want to be over here. So when the warm air comes up, because the low rotates counterclockwise, it pulls that warm up over the warm front, you get precipitation. And this is usually ice, sleet, and snow. Snow back here, wind-driven snow. But if you're in this area and you like snow, you're in trouble. You're just going to have rain or thunderstorms. So again, when we talk about why it's so complicated to forecast winter storms, this is a real weather map. And this is the low in Missouri. This may actually happen this weekend. Looks pretty similar. This is severe weather. We're not going to have severe weather. but rain, severe weather, rain, ice, snow, heavy snow, and then light snow. Where you are in relation to the exact track of this low and an upper level low will determine how much snow you get, whether it's all rain, whether it's ice. It's complicated. So a typical winter storm track, if you want a big winter storm in an area, comes out of Texas, Gulf Coast, and moves up here. And then there's an upper level low, it moves up here. So you get all this snow in here. And you can see, these are tight. A lot of times you can have a lot of snow in one county, but almost none in the other. Again, if this track shifts 30 miles, it totally changes the forecast. And this is why it's my feeling and belief that really you cannot forecast snow totals until about 24 hours out. I can tell you it might snow, let's just example, maybe 5 days out. It might snow January 3rd. 5 days before that, I might be able to tell you that it may snow, but there's no way to tell you how much. So when you see all these maps on the Facebook and everywhere about a big snow coming a week from now, just ignore it because they don't know. It's just a map that the model spits out, and they're showing it to you. But it's not a forecast. It's just a map from a model. These are some other storm tracks that we can get snow from in our area. So what's frustrating about forecasting snow and what makes it so difficult, one is that everybody wants to know how much snow am I going to get in my backyard. So if you're on social media, you see this all the time. Somebody say, well, how much for Paducah? And then three conversations later, comments, somebody else will say, well, how much snow for Ballard? Okay. Well, this is a real winter storm that happened in our area. In these colors here, you're getting 7, 8, 9, 10 inches of snow. For example, 17-mile difference, you go from no snow at all to 7 inches of snow in 17 miles. Even worse, in 7 miles here, you go from 0 inches of snow to 6, 7, 8 inches in 7 miles. So you can imagine how your hair might turn white if you're a forecaster and people are asking you how much is it going to snow. And you want to get it right, but it's just not that easy. Any shift of the low completely changes the forecast. If the low shifts 20 miles, then it all changes, or 30 miles, it all changes. This is another good example of one of those days where it really wasn't supposed to snow, but some light snow bands formed. There's absolutely no snow that fell in these black areas, but these white areas had 2-3 inches of snow. These are in one county. Parts of the county had no snow. Parts of the county had 2 or 3 inches. So bottom line is it's really hard to forecast snow and get the amounts right. That's why you'll see spreads like 3 to 6 inches, 4 to 8 inches, something like that. I tell people never count the snowflakes before they hatch. If you get excited about the snow, just, we'll see how it goes. A lot of times, a lot of winter storms, they end up like this. That's how it feels for the weatherman. All right, so big right now in meteorology is social science, social psychology. Why do people understand certain graphics but not others? Why do they not know what a warning means versus a watch? Why do they get confused because this color is red and this color is yellow? So big thing in the meteorology community right now is trying to understand social psychology. So we did extensive studies, okay, and we come up with this weather translator for winter storms. It's real complicated. This is how it goes. The weatherman says 1 to 3 inches of snow, 2 to 4 inches of snow, whichever category you fall in on the pretty weather maps on the TV. Okay, so the public, they kind of run this through their filters, okay? This is what they come up with when it's all said and done. That's what the public hears. Okay, so as a meteorologist, it's frustrating. But I've seen this often. I'll say 1 to 3 inches of snow, and all they hear is 3 inches. They always pick the biggest number. That's a problem, because that's what was forecast, but that's what they hear. And so we have to figure out, okay, how do we make it so they understand you may not get, the maximum end? Another complicated thing about winter storms, especially in our area, and you know this, somebody gets rain, somebody gets snow, somebody gets sleet, and then somebody gets snow, sleet, freezing rain, rain. That's the way it goes. The reason for that is that if you imagine the atmosphere as a column, and you go from the cloud all the way to the surface, or the surface to the cloud, What type of precipitation you end up with is 100% dependent on the temperature aloft. So if it's freezing all the way up and down, you'll get snow typically. And then as you get this, we call this warm layer, which normally from the Gulf of Mexico will get warmer air and it starts to move into our area. But the warmer air will go over top the colder air because colder air is thick, it sinks. This is what melts your snowflakes. Well, once a snowflake melts, snowflake does not come back. It's melted. So you either get freezing rain or you get sleet. This is another reason, especially in our area, that it's complicated. If you remember the big ice storm, which you do, Paducah had like 2 inches of ice, major damage. You went down to Mayfield, major damage. If you went across the line in Tennessee, a lot of those people are like, what winter storm? What ice storm? Very small difference between major damage and rain. That's the way winter storms are. And again, if you get the forecast track wrong, it messes up your forecast. When it comes to ice, it's really important to try and get it right. So again, let's imagine this is the atmosphere. You have 30,000 feet, your airplanes. The meteorologists have these, where we can look at skew-Ts, and we can look at the entire atmosphere and see what the temperature is aloft, what the dew point is. That helps us make a forecast. So a snow sounding, what we call, is where we can look at the atmosphere at any given moment, in the models will show us what it believes the atmosphere looks like from the surface all the way to the clouds. If the freezing line is over here, which it is, because here's the Celsius, everything on this side of it is freezing, it's going to snow. That's going to be snow. It's not going to be rain or anything else because everything's below freezing. If a little bit of that column is above freezing, we call that the melting layer. Your snow melts. Again, once snow melts, you can't get it back. If that freezing layer is deep enough, it has time for that water droplet to turn into sleet. Okay? Makes sense, right? You got a large area below freezing, you got water falling through it, it's going to freeze. It's going to have time to freeze into sleet. But if that layer of freezing air is small, it does not have time, the water does not have time to refreeze into a ball of ice, sleet. It remains rain. When that happens, you get freezing rain. So that's the difference between snow, sleet, and freezing rain. It all has to do with your temperatures aloft and how thick or small, either way, that freezing layer is. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, this makes it really complicated for that graphic will, maybe it will animate. So another problem is that we have dry air at the surface and it evaporates your snowflakes and rain. As the snowflakes fall, we call this virga, it's not reaching the ground. As this saturates and the air aloft saturates a little bit further down over time, eventually it will no longer be enough dry air here. The snowflakes will fall or rain all the way to the ground. But if you have dry air up here, it will evaporate before they reach the ground. So we call that virga. This is another problem with forecasting winter storms in our area. Last night, for example, radar showed snow over us. It was not snowing, but radar showed it because it was falling but evaporating before it reached the ground. I've seen snowstorms here where radar for 6 hours showed snow falling, but none of it was reaching the ground. It's because there's too much dry air. It can really mess up your forecast because if you've got a 12-hour snowstorm and 6 hours of it is spent waiting on the entire column to saturate enough so it can reach the ground, the snowflake, that's half your snowstorm. So meteorologists have to figure out, are we going to have virga? If so, how long is it going to last? That's going to mess up your snow forecast. This is a typical radar in the wintertime. You'll see this hole on radar. And people, I see online a lot of conspiracy theory people, you have this hole on radar, and it's like, why is there a hole in radar there, and it's snowing everywhere around me, but it's not snowing there? Okay? It's really because of HAARP. Now that I've told you that, just look up there. The truth is it's just what I told you a while ago, is there's dry air there. And stay with me here. That's your radar beam. When your radar from the Weather Service at Paducah goes out, it goes up. The further out you go, the higher up you're going to be. In other words, if you're right by the radar, that beam's maybe 500 feet above you. If you go out to Poplar Bluff, maybe it's 15,000 feet up. So what does that mean? Let's say you had a thunderstorm moving into the air. Your radar beam is going to be sampling way up in the storm. It's not going to sample the surface. That's why radar indicated tornadoes, you really need to be a couple of counties from the radar to really see it. If you get too far out, you can see rotation, but it's up here, not down here. So you have to figure out, is it rotating down here? That's where spotters come in. But remember this, what I told you a while ago about dry air at the surface. Okay, so your snowflakes fall through, and if it's dry air, they disappear. So that's why you have a radar like this. When the atmosphere moistens up enough, this will close in. So if I were to loop this radar over time, that hole would get smaller and smaller and smaller. Reason is because the snowflakes are making it to the ground further and further down. A lot of this is not reaching the ground. It's burgot. It just looks like it's snowing. The reason there's a hole there is because your radar beam goes up. It's picking up snowflakes higher up in the clouds. Here, it takes longer until it actually reaches the ground. When it reaches the ground, that hole will disappear and it'll be snowing at your house. Or it could already be snowing back here some, but in the center of it, you have to wait. Okay, so big thing nowadays is weather apps. Most people have a weather app, okay? We like to call these craps, okay? And the reason is, disclosure, I have all these apps on my phone because everybody, when they ask me about what their app is saying, I said, so where did you hear we're going to get 12 inches of snow? And I said, well, my app told me. I'm like, well, which app is it? Then I'll download it and see what everybody's looking at. So I have all these apps as well. If you see a forecast on your app, on December 2nd, for example, and this is real, on December 2nd, I put in Paducah, Kentucky in one of my apps. It's forecasting snow on the 26th, 27th, and 28th of December. Not only is it forecasting snow on those days, it's got your hour by hour on whatever it might snow. I will guarantee you that when you see this, this is a red flag. Meteorologists cannot forecast anything like that far in advance. All your apps are doing is showing you what one computer model shows. Usually it's a GFS. Some of them use something else. Whatever that GFS model shows is what your app says, and it changes a lot. So don't trust your app. Really don't trust your app much at all. If it's a sunny day, you can usually trust your app. If it's active weather, don't trust your app. You're probably going to need to check in with your trusted local sources for information. I'm not saying it can always be wrong, but most of the time it's wrong. All right, so case in point, earlier, last week, my friend Cody told me we're going to get 3 to 5 inches of snow on Wednesday night. And then we were joking online, and I said, so where did you read that? So I downloaded the app that he had, and I started screen capturing what it said. So he was right. It says right there, 3 to 5 inches of snow. This forecast is made on December 2nd for December 7th, okay? So it's made on Friday for Wednesday. Of course, Cody likes snow, so he's really excited. Okay, so about this time during that day that he messaged me, I started getting lots of messages. People are like, what's this I hear about snow? These are real messages. I hear it's going to snow. Are we really getting 5 to 10 inches of snow? There's some speculation about some significant snowfall on December 9th. All right, so this all happens at once. So immediately in my head, I'm like, okay, the apps are starting to tell everybody it's going to snow. Okay, so I get these messages, and I go to work, figure out what's going on. My forecast issued on December 2nd, and I'm really experimenting with graphics, was this. And the key point of this is it's still too early to make an accurate forecast. Yes, the model showed snow for last night, okay? But there's no way that a meteorologist can forecast amounts. But I will give you probabilities for what might happen. And if those probabilities go up with each day, you know that confidence is growing. 3 p.m. on the same day that Cody said 3 to 5 inches of snow is going to fall, at 3 p.m. on that day, we're down to maybe 1 inch, okay? So people are upset. It's not going to snow 3 to 5 inches. But wait, at 6 p.m., 3 hours later, the app said this, 1 to 3 inches of snow. Well, it's not 3 to 5, but it's more than 1. All right. So 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, now we're talking about freezing rain, okay? We're gonna have an ice storm. Great. If you're worried about weather, this causes a lot of anxiety and stress because some people, they don't like to hear it's going to snow or ice, especially ice. So this is anxiety for him. This is one reason that meteorologists should not scare people or get them too much anxiety 5 days in advance about something that may never happen. There's plenty of time to prepare for a winter storm. You can go get your milk and bread and all that good stuff 24 or 48 hours in advance. Granted, you might run out at Walmart because they're all gone, but all right, so 8 p.m. that night, we're back to 1 inch of snow, but the ice is gone. It's kind of a trade-off. All right, the end result, that's your end result. So I took a picture this morning, just so nobody thought I was lying. I took a picture this morning, and this is the 3 to 5 inches of snow. So you get it. The apps, don't trust your apps. And it doesn't ever bother me when somebody asks me. I always enjoy conversation with people about this subject. Apps are not, they're what I call dumb technology. And the reason I call them that is because there's no human intervention. Why do you think you can put in a zip code or a city into your app and get a forecast? Think about it. Do you think there's a meteorologist somewhere that says, Cody just asked me what it's going to do in Denver, Colorado. Let me get on that. No. It's because it's just simply spitting out numbers to you that means nothing to the app. It's just spitting out numbers. And the reason it changes 5 times a day, 4 times a day, the GFS model runs 4 times a day. Okay? That's why it changes all the time. Although I notice that app seems to change even more than that for whatever reason. All right. So, in the end, though, who gets blamed for this? So what do I hear this morning? I thought it was supposed to snow last night. Why did it not snow last night? Okay, we get blamed for this. So these apps are kind of the thorn in our side right now, and it's really a matter of educating the public about them. Now, I say that about forecasts. There are apps out there that will give you warnings and stuff like that, and that's a different subject. That is coming from a human being. The Weather Service pushes send on a tornado warning, your app goes off. That's a real human being. But all this other stuff, now with that said also, I should say, like my texting service, the reason you get 2 texts is because I'm hand typing the text, and because there's limits on how many letters you can have in a text for some people. So I send out 2 texts. And Nick and Jim Razor at WSIL, they, thankfully, made their app manufacturer allow them to go in and change it. So Nick and Jim, when necessary, they'll go in and change their app forecast. They also do not allow their app to go past a certain amount of days. Your AccuWeather 90-day forecast is not going to be accurate past day 3 or 4. All these long days for apps, like the 90-day, what it does is they're taking averages for like July. Let's say you're getting married in July. You look at your app now, maybe it gives you forecasts. It's basically just giving you the averages of what usually happens on that day and pretending it's a forecast. It's not a forecast. So we get blamed for this and have to deal with the aftermath of all these apps. It's bad enough as it is trying to forecast winter weather, but now with the apps, it's even worse. So my philosophy on all this is to try to simplify it somewhat and try to give you an idea of what might happen, what are the odds of that happening, and so experimenting with different graphics over the last few years, kind of settled on a few, is to ramp up, not down. So one of my forecast philosophies for severe weather and winter storms, do not tell somebody 5 days in advance it's going to be a blizzard on Friday. Do not do that. Do not tell people 3 days in advance there's going to be a tornado outbreak. First off, even though forecasting continues to get better and better, and we may be able to tell you 3 days in advance a bad outbreak, like the Brookport tornado day, we knew 5 days in advance. We started saying, it could be bad on that day. But you got to kind of temper that, because even with severe weather, usually it comes down to the 6 hours before a severe weather event. Is there sunshine that day? Does the atmosphere heat up? Does the energy build? It comes down to that. So there's no point telling people 5 days in advance there may be a tornado outbreak. When you see that stuff online, a lot of times it's trying to get you to click on a link. We call it clickbait. Don't click on it, but definitely don't share it. Go to somebody that you trust for the weather and ask them. So this is one of the graphics you'll see a lot this winter. So ramp up. If you start at 15% this day, tomorrow, if it goes to 20%, that means I'm thinking, this is looking more and more like it might snow. Okay? This is examples. So if you go to my blog, the talkweathertalk.com, talk.weathertalk.com, I try to give you a lot of information in the daily forecast, and this has grown over time and kindly based on what people have said. So you'll get your forecast, but on top of that, I try to give you my confidence. And if I say low confidence, significant adjustments are possible, that means don't complain when you walk away on Wednesday with a forecast for Saturday and never come back. Don't do that. During active weather, you want to check back frequently, because oftentimes the forecast does and will change. But I try to tell you that when I have high confidence, and usually that should happen. I tell you, monitor updates. Are we going to have frozen precipitation? Maybe. Monitor updates. Severe weather? No. Can I cancel my outdoor plans? Monitor radars. Precipitation is possible on Wednesday night. In the end, I had like 30% chances. In the end, it showed up on radar, but I don't think anything hit the ground, especially snow. When you see stuff like this online, this is fake. And you know it when you see it, because for one, you're all of a sudden like, oh my God, is this going to happen? As soon as you think that, you should say to yourself, probably this is fake. So don't share it to everyone else. This went around for every year for the last 3 years. I see this graphic. People are like, and they changed the date on it. But it's the same graphic. And then people say, is this true? No, it's not true. So before you share things, stop and think about them. If it worries you, if you share it, it's going to worry a whole lot more people. So ask, and I'll tell you, people will tag me in a lot of them, which is fine. But I'll tell you, yeah, I have read that. It's not accurate, or it's too soon. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but it's too soon. That's not going to happen, no matter what. But so ask. So a lot of meteorology is math. And if you know anything about meteorology, it's intensive math, and it's complicated math, and it's boring math. Okay? So most of you do not want any math tonight, so we will not do math. But weather gets boring. Not this July, because we had the wettest summer on record, but most Julys, probably going to be a forecast like this with a little 10% every day, those pop-up storms. But it gets boring. So somehow we have to, draw your attention in. So I'm pretty good about making weather entertaining a little bit. People have said that they like that, especially when I don't need to be serious. It's not a serious winter or a severe weather outbreak or something. Usually every winter I'll say, this is it, let the games begin. This is when people start asking, is it going to snow? This is when all the rumors start. It just becomes like mayhem online for winter storm season. You would think that my busiest time of the year would be tornado season or severe weather season. That is not the case. The busiest time of the year by far, not even close, December, January, and February. I am convinced that people who say they hate snow secretly love snow. Those who like snow really like snow. So we could have a significant tornado outbreak. You will not see the quarter of the traffic as if a winter storm warning has been issued. It gets crazy online. So I'm convinced that everybody likes snow, whether they say it or not. But this is my busiest time of the year, December, January, and February. So I try to do a lot of graphics. And if you follow me, you know that. Make it fun. If you follow me for winter storms, then you're familiar with the Milk and Cookies with Beau. It started a few years ago and just having fun one night, but it really grew. So people will say, when we're having Milk and Cookies with Beau, it means the winter storm is coming. So most people know that. And all of a sudden there'll be like 1,000 people on Facebook asking how much is it going to snow in their backyard. And then somebody will ask the same question 2 comments down. So I like to have fun with that, and I really like interacting with the public. I like answering the questions. it seems to bother the other people in the thread more than it does me when people keep asking the same questions, although occasionally I will be like, yeah, I answered that question right. Everyone please read up, read the answers to the questions that have already been asked, especially when it's a big event. Because what will happen is people will just do a drive-by, they'll stop on Facebook, they know it's going to snow, they read nothing. I can literally type their exact answer in the forecast and answer that, and they'll ask me the same question that I just said. So I've come to realize that people just don't read everything. But if you really want to read everything, I usually will answer a question. So I have a snowstorm rating scale that I use. I started this a few years ago. Basically, it's just another way to communicate threat, impact. Impact's really what you want to know. Most people don't care if it snows 2 inches and the roads are too warm for it to stick to the roads. If the roads aren't slick, maybe your kids like it because they can build a snowman. But school teachers, they really don't care. They want it to be slick so they can get out of school. So forecasting impact is important. That goes back to what I said earlier on all those things. Will the snow even stick to the road? Okay. So I have that. Sometimes you'll see that. When it gets to 5, that's a big deal. Last year, the one winter storm in West Kentucky that had 7-foot drifts in Graves County, I don't remember what month it was, but it snowed quite a bit, and the wind was like 40, 50 miles an hour, and it just drifted shut some areas. Schools were closed for a long time. Really, over the last few years, there's been several times. There's one year schools were closed for 30 days, if you added them all up. But we've had a lot of snow. So sometimes you'll see this, and it tries to communicate impact. This is another thing I've been experimenting with. And again, this kind of helps me too. So instead of you just seeing 6 to 8 and thinking it's going to snow 8, you get some idea here. So at 80% at no snow to 1 inch, that's the most likely scenario. Can someone get 8 inches of snow? Maybe, but it's not going to be the rule. So you kind of get an idea, when you understand probabilities, you get an idea of what that means. The same with that, as I mentioned earlier. Sometimes you'll see this graphic, and again, it's what are the odds of an over-under? What's the chance of no snow at all? What's the chance of 1 inch? On this particular day, there was only a 5% chance of an inch. There's a 99% chance it's not going to do anything or snow at your house. You'll see this for severe weather. Again, trying to use other methods to communicate lightning reports, widespread lightning, a few reports of flash flooding possible, small tornado risk. And then over here, if you don't like that, I'll give you this, a text that gives you a little more information. And of course, monitor updates anytime there's active weather. This is another graphic that I like to use, What's the high end of an event? 5 inches, the low end's 1 to 2, maybe 1.5, 2 inches would be normal. It communicates quickly, especially when you have people that just drive by on Twitter and Facebook. And I do the same with rainfall and try to give you probability. And just because the probability is low, for example, on this one, like 20, 30%, somebody probably will end up with that. It's just most people are going to end up with these totals. These are going to be the outliers, or a few spots. It's impossible to predict location to location how much snow or rain is going to fall with accuracy. So sometimes you will see this on TV, which is okay, but you'll get down to like the 10th. But a lot of times that doesn't verify. It just doesn't work that way. Probabilities seem to work better. And this is another one with rain. All right. So I think it's almost 7. So let's do questions about winter weather or whatever topic about weather.
What about global warming?
Did you say global warming? Okay. Okay, so a lot of the debate in the meteorology community is really not, the debate really is not so much, is the globe warming? The globe is warming. The real debate has become almost a religion. The real debate has become, are human beings responsible for the warming? And that's where you see this significant split among climatologists, which are not meteorologists. There's a difference. Meteorologists are not climatologists. political boundaries have been drawn around this, and it's become a heated argument online and everywhere else. This is my philosophy on the subject. The globe, we go through cycles, and if you look at the long-term cycles, the temperatures, this is what your chart will look like over thousands of years. So obviously there's warmer periods and colder periods. However, it is true that over the last 100 years, there has been a spike that probably cannot be explained other than somewhat humans are involved. To what extent is a question mark, but my philosophy is to tell people we should probably treat the environment the best we can. We should spend money on trying to figure out, how to get off fossil fuels. How can we, conserve more energy? How can we have cleaner air, clean coal, whatever? If we do that, really that's the best we can do. I'm not a big fan of spending hundreds of billions of dollars on, for example, and I'm just giving you a fact here, so I'm not giving you a political. President Obama, when asked after this climate treaty a few years ago, how will it make a lot of difference? And the answer was no. But it was kind of like, we are doing something. Okay, so for me, if you're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars, why not have a Manhattan Project or more than one where the world comes together and tries to put money into figuring out how can we have cleaner fuel, rather than spending hundreds of billions of dollars on stuff that really doesn't matter, which is kind of what's going on, unfortunately. If the worst case scenarios happen and we reach what we call a tipping point in meteorology, and a tipping point is where there's no going back. In other words, at the time we reach a tipping point of melting in the Arctic or Antarctic, it's way too late. And it may already be too late if some of the climatologists are correct. If that's the case, then it is. What are you going to do? We're going to have to deal with it. Coastal cities, which around the world, obviously are a lot of real estate, expensive real estate, they're going to have to figure it out. Because if this continues, the oceans will definitely rise. I mean, it's going to happen. But that's my philosophy on it. It's a complicated issue, and I have read both sides. And I can walk away one day and think, oh yeah. And then the next day I can read something and it makes me go, well, maybe that's not right. That's the way it is. So that's an honest answer. Thank you. What other question? Yeah.
I have noticed on television, on the forecast maps of snow, it seems like there'll be like a little band like this that will start maybe in about Cairo or Columbus, Belmont, and go right up the Ohio River toward Evansville. Does the river influence that?
Okay, so for a long time, meteorologists locally and elsewhere would say no. Okay, but over time, I think that we've realized that we don't understand everything that goes on in the atmosphere. There's so many small variables. Can the river influence it? Yes. Does it? Crowley's Ridge is a big influence. If you go into Massac County and you go to New Columbia Bluff, you go in, there can be a difference. So these little terrain areas, I can tell you that, for example, on radar, I don't know how, I couldn't even count how many times I watched a storm rotate through northern Graves County, central Graves County, into northern Callaway and part of Ballard. Not Ballard, the one north of Callaway, I can't remember. Thank you, sorry. All the time, all the time. This year, one of them produced a tornado. I see it all the time through there. It cannot be a coincidence. So something is influencing that, and we don't know what it is.